There's a question that's been really sitting with me lately, and I wanted to offer it to you as we begin our deep dive today. Who in your life needs your prayers right now? Just hold that thought for a second. It sounds simple, right? But when you dig into it, this question opens up something, well, really profound. It's a concept that runs deep through history but feels incredibly relevant today. We're going to explore what it means to stand in the gap.
That phrase, standing in the gap, yeah, can sound a bit old-fashioned, maybe.
Mhm.
But what we find is that it describes something very active, a really vital kind of engagement, specifically a deep form of prayer.
Not just any prayer, though.
No, exactly. It's not passive. It's about very deliberately stepping into a place of need
Hmm.
for someone else.
And the way it's often framed is almost like a holy assignment. Is that fair to say?
I think that captures it perfectly. A task may be given centered on this idea that there are these moments of, brokenness or vulnerability in the world. And there's this sense of a search for someone willing to step into that space.
Okay, so standing in the gap. What's the core meaning then? If it's this intense prayer, what defines it?
At its heart, it's about intercessory prayer, praying for others. But it's undertaken with a particular intensity. The wisdom behind it really stresses that it's not rote. It's not casual. It needs certain qualities, dispositions of the heart, you could say.
Okay, what qualities are those?
Well, three consistently come up: urgency, compassion, and faith.
Urgency, compassion, faith. That sounds significant, like there's a real weight to it.
There is. It suggests you really grasp the need, you genuinely feel for the person or the situation, and you actually believe the prayer itself can make a difference.
Why those three together? What if, say, you have compassion but not urgency?
Well, the sense is they really work in tandem. Urgency is what gets you moving, right?
Yeah.
It says, this matters now. Compassion connects you. It makes their struggle feel closer, maybe even a bit like your own. It stops it from being abstract.
And
Faith is the conviction that your prayer isn't just, shouting into the wind, that it connects to something or someone capable of bringing change or comfort or whatever's needed. Without urgency, maybe the prayer lacks fire. Without compassion, maybe it feels a bit cold, distant.
and without faith,
Yeah.
maybe it just feels empty, like going through the motions.
Exactly. It's the combination, the synergy of all three that seems to give this kind of prayer its unique character, its potency.
That really clarifies it. The blend of feeling the need, knowing its importance, and truly believing in the act of praying. Now, this image standing in the gap, where does it actually come from? You mentioned tradition.
Yeah, it has strong roots in ancient scripture,
Right.
particularly in the Hebrew prophets. The book of Ezekiel is often pointed to. There's one specific verse, Ezekiel 22:30, that really paints the picture. It says something like, "And I searched for a man among them who would build up the wall and stand before me in the gap on behalf of the land."
That I would not destroy it, but I found no one. Wow. Build up the wall and stand before me in the gap. That's incredibly vivid. What does that imagery tell us about the gap itself and the kind of person God is looking for?
Well, the gap is usually understood as a breach, like a hole in a city's defensive wall, a point of weakness where danger or destruction could get in.
So vulnerability.
Exactly. But not just physical. It could be spiritual, moral, representing maybe societal breakdown, sin, times when things are falling apart. And notice the text says, "I searched." It's not passive. God is actively looking for someone to intervene.
But to do what exactly? Just notice the gap.
No, to step into it, to stand before me, meaning pleading directly with God, positioning themselves between the problem or the consequence and the people or land that are vulnerable. They're essentially filling that void, that place where protection or connection is broken down. They're standing on behalf of others.
So the phrase itself implies there's a real need, an active search, and a crucial role for someone to play. It's not just praying about a problem from afar.
Right. It's about positioning yourself in that place of need, spiritually speaking.
Okay. So who are we called to do this for? Who are these people in need? Is it just for huge crises?
Actually, the scope is incredibly broad. That's one of the powerful things about it. It applies everywhere. On one level, it's deeply personal. It could be, a friend battling addiction, a family member with a serious illness.
A child who's maybe lost their way?
Absolutely. A spouse going through a really hard time. Those close, intimate needs, those are often primary places we're called to stand in the gap.
That makes immediate sense. It connects right back to that opening question. But it goes wider than our immediate circle.
Oh, definitely. It extends to communities, maybe praying for your city if there's unrest or hardship, for regions hit by disaster, even for whole nations dealing with conflict, injustice, or widespread suffering.
So from your struggling neighbor to a nation in crisis.
Yes, the need for someone to stand in that gap exists at, well, pretty much every level of human experience.
That range is really something. It means it's not limited by who you know or how close you are. It's a response to need itself. And this isn't just an ancient idea we're dusting off, right? You mentioned this holy assignment is still happening today.
Very much so.
Mm.
There are some powerful modern examples that show this practice is alive and, well, impactful.
Let's talk about those. Can you share one of the maybe larger scale examples you came across?
Yes, there's a compelling account from 2025. During a time of intense conflict, churches across Ukraine and Poland facing huge risks and difficulties came together for these widespread prayer vigils, often overnight.
Wow, overnight vigils during a conflict.
Yes, their stated purpose was specifically this: to stand in the gap, to intercede for peace, for protection during all that violence and uncertainty.
That kind of coordination, that sustained prayer, it really speaks to that urgency and faith we were discussing earlier.
It does, a powerful expression of it.
So what happened? What was the reported impact of these vigils? Did the war stop?
Well, the reports are clear. The external situation, the conflict itself, remained incredibly difficult and unpredictable. Prayer doesn't always mean an instant change in circumstances like that.
Right. That's important to acknowledge.
But something profound happened among the people praying. They described experiencing moments of incredible comfort, finding strength even while surrounded by fear. There was this tangible sense of community, of solidarity, shared purpose in the face of it all.
Kind of spiritual resilience.
Exactly. People reported feeling spiritually renewed, anchored, when everything else felt chaotic. So even if the fighting didn't stop right away, the people praying found vital support, internal and communal, that helped them endure.
That's a really key insight. The impact isn't only about changing the external world, but also about strengthening the inner world and the community. What about something maybe smaller, more personal?
Yes, there are beautiful stories of individual faithfulness, too. One account that stood out was about a teacher in Georgia. She really took this idea of standing in the gap to heart for her students. She saw the challenges many of them and their families were facing.
So what did she do?
She made this quiet, personal commitment to pray every day for each student by name and for their specific family situation.
Every day. For each student and their family. That's a serious commitment. That speaks volumes about compassion and faith right there.
It really does. Consistent personal intercession.
And what happened? What were the results, according to the account?
Well, over the next few months, some really positive shifts started to happen. Now, you can't always draw a straight line, cause and effect, you
Sure.
know.
Life isn't always that simple.
But the timing was compelling. Several families connected to her students, some who were really struggling, found a connection, found support, and actually started attending her church. And maybe the most striking thing, one student who had been really heading down a tough path academically, personally, maybe even thinking of dropping out, he experienced a major turnaround. His whole outlook, his behavior, it shifted. He got back onto a more positive track.
That's incredible. Families finding community, a young person's life turning around. So these examples, big and small, they suggest that these acts of standing in the gap, whether it's huge visuals or one person's quiet daily prayer, can actually lead to real, observable changes, not just spiritual effects for the person praying.
Precisely. And this connects back to a really central idea in all of this, which is that when we engage in this kind of prayer, urgent, compassionate, faithful prayer, we're not just acting alone. There's this powerful concept presented that we are actually partnering with God.
Partnering with God, that's a big thought. It elevates prayer beyond just asking for stuff.
It really does. It suggests a collaborative effort, our human willingness meeting divine action.
So prayer isn't just a last resort or sending wishes out into the universe.
Not in this understanding, no. It's framed as being integral to how God's purposes unfold in the world. Our willingness to stand in that gap, driven by that urgency, compassion, and faith. It's presented as the human part of a partnership aimed at bringing hope where there's despair, bringing healing where there's brokenness.
It suggests our prayers aren't just heard, but they're somehow woven into the process, involved in the outcome.
In some mysterious, profound way, yes. That seems to be the implication.
So this holy assignment then, it's not just a heavy burden, but it's also an invitation to join in something really significant.
Exactly. It gives the act of prayer immense purpose, stepping into that gap, that place of need. It's not just reacting, it's proactively participating in, well, in mending the world. A task that, according to those ancient texts, the divine is actively seeking partners for.
It changes the perspective, doesn't it? From prayer being something we do for God to something we do with God. On behalf of others, that's a powerful way to see it.
It is a vision of connection and real purpose.
So, standing in the gap. We've seen it's a call rooted deep in Scripture, defined by that urgency, compassion, and faith. It applies everywhere, from the person right next to us to global situations. We've seen modern examples where it seems to have tangible impact. And maybe most profoundly, it's presented as this partnership with the divine, working towards hope and healing.
It really brings it all together. And it leads us right back to the personal call.
Yes, it brings us back to where we started. It's an invitation, isn't it? To look around us, maybe look within, and see those places of need, those gaps that might be calling for our intercession. So let's consider it again, really reflect on it in light of this discussion. Who in your life needs your prayers right now?